Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Dave and Sam for another special Star Wars spoiler discussion. This is our spoiler discussion on Ahsoka Part 4, titled Fallen Jedi. Title that I'm sure probably got a lot of people very excited when they were watching it at whatever ridiculous time we were watching it this morning. And we are here to go through all the major moments and talk about this episode. But before we get into any of that sort of stuff, how are we all doing tonight?
Yeah, very well. It's lovely to be back on for another episode of Ahsoka, and a fantastic episode to get into as well. So yeah, it's Tuesday, Wednesday. It's this silly early showing times. But yeah, it's really lovely to be back, and I can't wait to talk about this just piece of awesomeness.
Ditto. I mean, it's a shame I'm on for this filler episode where nothing happened, but I'm very happy to be here talking about it anyway. And of course, it's a complete lie. It was a great episode, and as far as fan reactions appear anyway on social media, there's a lot of people who say this is a return to form for Star Wars, which I agree. But then I also think we've been on good form anyway. But yeah,
very fair. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the reactions because these Tuesday mornings, guys. Sorry, Wednesday mornings for us. These Tuesday nights in America, we've sort of had our concerns about spoilers online, haven't we? And I think it's going to be fair to address this straight away. Didn't anticipate the official Lucasfilm account dropping the big spoiler at 4 p.m. That is 14 hours after an episode has launched. And right front and center, the big spoiler, which, this is a spoiler discussion. If you haven't seen it, it's the poster of Anakin on the front, spoiler discussion.
Who? Oh my God. No.
You know that geezer that's part of this insane family that are involved in all the politics, not the Johnsons, no, it's the Skywalkers. But it's just, Twitter was a war zone. And like, I know we all watched it early. Sam, you watched it before work. Dave, did you watch it before work?
I woke like 20 past 6 something this morning. As soon as I woke up, put it on. So I just, saw it very early.
Wednesday is my office day. Normally I get up at 6:30 and I got up at 5 because I didn't know how long the episode was going to be. And I just had to get ready and a few other things. So I was like, I can't take any precautions on Wednesdays anymore. And I'm glad I didn't. I almost went on Twitter when I woke up and I pressed X. I pressed the big button and straight away it was someone I follow that didn't do a spoiler, but it was just like, when they're like rapid type random letters. I'm like, yep, turn that off. I forgot it's already out. So, it's been a weird day and I hope it hasn't been spoiled for people. Again, our thumbnail, I could have done the obvious. I've started predicting thumbnails, and I did this last night. I was like, I'm not going to have the arrogance to put this thumbnail on right now, but I'll put the template one up, and then if it drops, I think it's going to be the lightsaber one. Got that one right. No idea what's going to happen in the next few weeks, but we want to hear from everybody at home. So please do comment your thoughts on Ahsoka. Today's episode, where you think the series is going. Are you enjoying it? Are you not enjoying it? We want to hear from everybody. We want to hear all your opinions, whether you like it or not. It is interesting hearing from different people. Different people have got different reactions to how the series has gone so far. And I guess I don't normally go for full insane speculation, but I think we're going to have a lot of speculation on tonight's episode. We now know episode 5 is going to be shown in cinemas in America and to the UK only London, one cinema at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Thank you, says everybody that doesn't live in London that can't make it because, we could just casually get home from London at midnight on Tuesday. Sound. But also follow us on social media. It's where we announce videos, other streams and whatnot. Linktree.com/cinemasavvy. It's got a link to Facebook, Twitter, not LinkedIn, Letterboxd, Instagram. I always keep calling it LinkedIn. It's doing my head in. I hate LinkedIn. But you can get us on social media there. But Dave, we didn't get you on last week. We had you in the comment section. We've got Phil in the comment section this week. We're lovely. Hello there. Very quickly, your thoughts on part 3.
Again, I thought it was a great episode. They've been very much a branching story, whereas it does feel like one big, long movie that's been cut up exactly. So we're not getting sort of, this is the story now, we're going to a different place for another part of this. You're kind of literally following on beat from beat. So I really got back. I really enjoyed it. I thought the Purgle that we got to see, I thought it was just a really well put together episode. It was great to see the story moving further forward, and it just built up so much for this week's episode. I didn't expect this episode to go where it went. I thought it might come at some point, but I didn't expect us to get to where we got to. But yeah, it's been It's been a really good episode last week as well. I enjoyed just watching you guys chat about it and joining in from the comments as well. So yeah, it was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
Lovely. And Sam, I'm going to jump to you first. I actually don't have a question or anything.
No.
I'm going to try and avoid talking about the ending until we get to the ending, but it's going to pop up. It's going to pop up before. We've got Phil. I watched it probably on socials. I watched it for the second time, and its reaction was the same emotional as mine. Let's jump into it. Let's do what we do these spoiler discussions. Let's go through the major episodes. And for an episode that's 40 minutes, kind of like last week, it's sort of in 3 parts. Directed by Peter Ramsey, who co-directed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Worked on Mandalorian Season 3. I can't remember what episode he did, of Season 3. But Filoni spoke about him at Celebration when they announced he was going to be directing Ahsoka. And he kind of made those passing comments that he compared Peter Ramsey to himself, that he's wanted to make the jump from animation into live action. And that the TV shows with Star Wars were a great way at doing that. And I'll just say from my thoughts, like in terms of direction, this episode was another outstanding episode, directed, crafts, the visuals. Again, I still keep questioning. They've nailed the volume for this series, particularly. That I'm never knowing what's on set, what's not. Lots of Force Awakens vibe with trees being cut down. I'm not going to lie. But Sam, what are your thoughts? Would you say on today's direction before we actually get into the big scene by scene moments?
I think the main thing is it's the cinematic feel, which I feel like in Star Wars television has been a bit. I think especially with the last couple of years has been a bit on and off. I think when the Mandalorian first hit, I think everyone was so surprised about how cinematic it looked, while still kind of being very aware that it was made for television. Whereas now I do think the lines are more blurred than ever before. And I think there's a reason why they're very easily showing episodes of The Mandalorian on big screens last season, and they're showing next week's episode of Ahsoka at the cinema. So direction wise, it really is great. And like I said, I think there was like maybe one moment where I think we were in Home One's hangar, and I thought I could see not that I could, but in my mind I was like I'm sure this is where the volume ends, and this is where that was kind of the only time I've done that. But even so,
is that the opening episode?
No, it was this episode. Today's episode when they're going to the Ghost, and I was just like, in my mind, I was like, I feel like I know where the border is, but it doesn't take me out. I mean, like all visual effects in Star Wars, they're very good, so it's not going to take me out. We know the really bad visual effects, and even that doesn't take me out because I'm immersed into the story. But overall, it has been so amazing, and I love that it is more of a continuous story rather than a monster of the week, or whatever it is, which the Mandalorian has had. And whilst I like it, I do like this kind of one running thread with maybe just some cutaways to Hera, and what she's doing and stuff. But yeah, so overall, I think the direction has been fantastic.
Dave, your thoughts as well on Peter Ramsey?
Yeah, I think the whole thing, like Sam's just kind of said, so I'm just going to kind of reiterate his points, to be honest, is because they're excellent made points, Sam. So just anytime. So yeah, I just think it's been shot so well, and the technology has come so far. And yes, they probably are using the volume. That's it. I think I agree with Sam. That was probably the only point in this around. Okay, volume. But the rest of it, and to be honest, that the whole henge, as they call it, is probably the stage, and the rest of it is all volume. But it never once has computed in my head like, as that looks like a completely CGI generated or video background. So I think it's being shot much better, and I think as they're learning with the technology, and the cameras are getting better with that technology as well as how it's being shot, it is looking much more cinematic. I think this series by far, even compared to, I know Andor was very much that, but obviously a lot of that was shot on actual location, so it automatically has that feel. Whereas if this is a lot of it shot still on the volume, which I'm really looking forward to seeing the gallery for this show when it comes out, to see kind of what that split was. Didn't get one for Andor because they were never going to let us. Tony Gilroy's never going to have that around them. So I'm really interested to see exactly how much was done on the volume and how much was in any sort of set. But I think they're just getting better and better at shooting it to make it look much more cinematic as they're going on. And I think this is very much going to lead into Filoni's movie, that this feel. And I think the next few series might all start to look a lot more cinematic for when we build up to that movie.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. That, I know we've mentioned it each week, but I hadn't actually thought of that, Steve. This is leading up to a bigger story, a film. We don't know if it's going to be the first Star Wars film since Rise of Skywalker. I have my bet that we're going to now get this before we get the new Daisy Ridley one, just because of the strikes and everything. I'd guarantee that this one's probably going to be in a better place to pick up production first. And, we know Filoni's directing. And I would say that I know we're only halfway through with today. This is, I hate saying the audience are united. Not that I don't want Star Wars to be fighting each other, because it's childish, but Andor wasn't watched by enough people. It's very, very incredible. It's a great series. It's got a lot of fans. It's up for best series, the Emmys, which is massive for Star Wars. Cannot mention how big that is to be up there with shows like Succession, and the actual elite TV series of our time. There's a Star Wars show up there. Never thought that day would come. I don't think enough of the general audience saw it. I think Ahsoka's going to be the first one that taps into the general audience a bit more than Andor does. And it's almost been unanimous so far in terms of people's reaction to it. And kind of building up to that bigger picture, it's where today really kicks off, is that we've got the first real moment where it's connecting to not the films, because it always is, but there's a Skywalker in today's episode, and it's not Luke, which is the big thing. And we're going to get to that. But we jump back to, I guess, the beginning. We'll kick off the forest fight, because we knew this was happening. This was one of the marketed scenes. They actually released a clip yesterday. I've not seen them release a clip on the day of an episode before it came out. So I was like, okay, get the forest thumbnails at the ready, get the assumptions in on what's going to happen today. And I kind of would say the forest scene's fine. It's really hard to breaking down these episodes week by week, because it's a mini series. It's all coming together to form the same story. But today's episode is almost like not a chase sequence, but the characters have got to get from Fulcrum to the map. Stonehenge, Spacehenge, what do we want to call it? We can get a new name. But
we'll just call it Spacehenge for now.
I think they just call it the Henge. Yeah.
I need to rewatch the episode. But it's,
oh no,
it's honestly watching at 5 a.m. and also if I want to moan about streaming, I know we're getting 4Ks eventually down the line. They still haven't announced that we're going to get it in the UK, which is frustrating. They need to sort this out now, because I don't want to import it from America and find out it's like £10 more expensive than it's going to be here. But I know it's cheap, but it's just doing my head in.
It's a cost of living crisis, guys.
Yes.
I know, and I can't be dealing with Star Wars on 4K. I was meant to have done that like 2 years ago. But it's one of them where I kept getting buffering, and I was like, it's 5 o'clock. No one's awake in this house. I've got good internet. I've got 4 bars on my laptop, 4 bars on my phone. So don't tell me that my TV can't stream Disney Plus at a 4K bitrate. And I was getting really aggravated. So I had to pause it, go out for a couple of minutes, and then it worked fine. But the sequence was really good. And I'm really glad part of me thought we're going to get a dragged out episode. We're going to have them running around the forest for the whole time, and it will end with like the duel at the map and then disappearing. It sort of does that, but it does it in such a quick way that we're not wasting time again. That 40 minutes isn't the longest of run times today. But like last week, the episode should be as long as the episode needs to be. You don't want to start episode 5, leave on a cliffhanger, fine. But I like the forest sequence. It's an easy action sequence to get us back into it, to get to the duet lightsaber duel. Got to talk about what I've been reading online, sorry. There has been a disgusting amount of theories in the last 2 weeks about the identity of the Inquisitor. Marok. He spoke last week, and people thought that was a further sign he was a known character. Rest in peace, Marok. If I wasn't asleep and had a nap after work, I was going to do like an RIP Marok 2 week long speculation.
We hardly knew you. We didn't know.
We
didn't know.
We could have had an amazing in memoriam section halfway through this video. Just that.
Honestly, I thought about it just because of how. I mean, Sam, we were chatting, I think, on Twitter about it the other day, and I think I messaged you like, I think it's just going to be an Inquisitor. And there was it's this character, it's that character.
Well, we started talking about it because there was something where it was like it's Cal Kestis, and I just messaged you that image, and I was like, if that happens, I'm gonna die or something because I can't. I just couldn't stand if that was the case. Not me being overdramatic, but I was just like, that just seems like the wrong decision for many, many reasons.
No, and it's fair as well to say that because we were getting Sam Witwer Star Killer theories. I'm like, I think to be fair, one of the I think it might have been Brian Herring just tweeted about everyone else, and it's like Sam Witwer's provided voices to basically every live action show. He's credited in almost every episode. He just does voices when they want him to. People were convinced it was him. And obviously, because he's not using Twitter or social media, people then obviously think, oh, it's what it says in the show. It's like, well, he can't say he's in the show because he's in the SAG strike. So it's just, social media does what social media does. But I know I'm jumping ahead past the duels, but unless you guys want to talk about the duels straight away, they don't have much to say on the little forest gunfight. I have nothing to add if I'm being honest. Great bit of David Tennant humor, I'll give it that.
I did love the Hu Yang, that you kind of don't expect this little battle of them fighting, but then he's taught Jedi for like 25,000 years or something. Of course, he's going to have some actual fighting. He doesn't stand up for long against the droid, that's the assassin droid that's getting him. But I did like seeing the Rock'em Sock'em Robot moment at the beginning of them just sort of hammering out at each other. I thought it was very well done. I really liked them using this droid. Whoever decided was going to be like, this droid is going to actually be not just a side in this episode for a little bit to actually make it a main character. I thought it just deserves all the credit because it's been really nicely received. I think he's an excellent counterbalance to Ahsoka and Sabine, especially because Ahsoka's now we've seen her from sort of a young girl in Clone Wars to she's very stoic now, and I think it's nice to have Hu Yang as sort of almost like the comedy relief a little bit in what he says. So I think it's really nice. But I love the opening scene. I loved seeing him have a little fight. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, I mean, again, based on what I said last week about really not having any context on Hu Yang whatsoever prior to Ahsoka, it has been interesting to see how a droid like that is incorporated into the show. And I like, at least for Ahsoka, that there's kind of like this connection to the old Jedi Order and someone who knows, who has seen a lot of things more so than many of us or most of us. So I was very pleasantly surprised when he joined in the fight a little bit. That was fun. But yeah, just to see some action, I like seeing the combined efforts of Ahsoka and Sabine together. I do like in any kind of Star Wars media when it involves Jedi, when it's a master and an apprentice working together and utilizing each other's skills. And so I like seeing that put into practice. I know it doesn't last very long because they end up splitting off and stuff. But I think it's always fun to see that. And obviously at the very, very beginning, they take out those assassins, no problem. Until, there's a stronger pairing come along, which I'd say was actually was really good. And I did get a bit of Force Awakens vibes just because it is a very kind of, and a little bit of Rise of Skywalker, actually, just thinking about it. Just it's not very often in the original trilogy or the prequels that we got, battles within trees of lightsabers and stuff. So I found that whole thing just, really interesting and really nice visuals.
Yeah, and what I kind of love it, and this is massive credit to, I think, the sequel trilogy, how they approached the duels was, listen, we love the prequels. And this isn't a dig at the prequels at all, but I remember reading interviews from J.J. Abrams and others working on 7, and they were like, they meant it as a dig of the prequels. I don't read it as that, but I like the approach. It's their logic of the lightsaber duels was, these are two people that want to kill each other. And that's exactly how it is in Force Awakens. It's very different in Rise of Skywalker. And 8 doesn't technically have a lightsaber duel. It's obviously the throne room scene. But that's how I felt like today. It was like, here's just two people trying to kill each other. I'm like, it's simple. Let's go. Let's roll. And that's fine. And so are the prequel duels, because they're bloody great too. And they're the best. Yes. And they've got John Williams blaring over the top. But it's one of those where the show just gets going at such a good pace. They're not dragging out. Remember last week? Let's talk about last week's events, then get into this week's. I just love the pacing and their approach to it. And we've got a couple of comments by Phil as well. He put very glad Sabine to have the Force and the Mando weapons. I love Shin Hati, and I say this every week, and I'm starting to get into these vibes now where it's like I see the people talking about her all the time, and I'm like, resist, George. You're not one of them. But I love that she was fuming that Sabine doesn't have the Force. I'm like, she's sort of all of us, like, because she'd gone to do a Force thing, and like, she's like, I was like, part of me for a split second was like, oh, has it worked?
Nope.
And then obviously, actually, Shin's like, she's sort of there like, you don't have it? And then she's more angry and wants to kill her even more. So I love that approach. And that's the sort of thing I wish we had more of. And again, I know Filoni didn't direct this episode. And when there is a gallery, I cannot wait to find out what he's been saying, because the choreography of the duels, of these action set pieces, and we'll talk about the big one shortly because we're going to get to the big duel. I don't want to over-exaggerate the George Lucas hype. You know, he is the chosen one. Teach him, train him, blah, blah, blah. He's the protege. He is the next Lucas. All the stuff we've had about Filoni over 10 years. This series is all of that coming together and more. And I know Peter Ramsey directed, he did a great job. I just imagine Filoni being on set for this entire thing. And when it's how they are dueling one another, I mean, we've got the forest scene, right? Rest in peace, Marok. Hashtag not Starkiller. Hashtag not Cal Kestis. Hashtag not Barris. Hashtag not Sam Witwer. Hashtag just an Inquisitor.
But we are thinking a dead Inquisitor, right? That the Night Sister brought, that she brought back. That
exactly that, because that was a pretty cool, weird way to go.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that it was in the this was almost the backup thumbnail today was the spinning lightsaber, and I was there like the Star Wars Rebel, like how we've moved on, that they were mocked with the helicopter lightsabers. Like, is he going to jump off a tree and fly? Is this the moment? Obviously, it didn't happen, but I loved that. It looked amazing, the spinning blade and the lighting and whatnot. I loved all that sort of stuff. But again, the Filoni approach to the samurai-esque Star Wars, you know, the origins, the Japanese cinema origins, it really makes me want to go to Japan in 2025. I'm not going to lie. Just the simple, like, samurai swipe through, very old school, no elongated duel. And I was like, there goes those theories. And then he does that horrid scream whilst he turns into a big puff of green smoke from the Night Sisters. What were your thoughts on... I don't want to compare it to the Kenobi Maul duel. And I've not seen people compare it to that, which is great, because I was worried that the internet's just going to take it and be like, remember when they did this in Rebels and they've now robbed it in live action? I don't think it's that at all. But did you guys think this was going to be a big drawn-out thing? Or, like me, do you think because it's a nameless Inquisitor, he's going to be dispatched off pretty quickly?
There was obviously so many rumors around Marek of who it was actually going to be. And for a time, you almost get caught up in it and think, well, if it is somebody, then yeah, it's going to be a much bigger fight. But Ahsoka kind of is battling him, and then for a second just thinks, oh, you know what, I'm kind of done with it. And she raises that stance where she's just standing with her hands above her head, ready, just in this complete, like, I'm done now, we'll finish this. And she dispatched him so easy with that one swipe. And it was just a beautiful thing that it was done, because you really wanted to get, now he's out the way, that's great, because we can get to Baylon, which is, I just can't adore Baylon any more than is physically, I just want to be him. And
you could do a great cosplay as him,
couldn't I? Just grow a bit more of this.
You've got the beard. You've got the beard.
I'll dye my hair blondie, white, whatever, and you know I've got the length there. So
I'll turn into a puff of green smoke. We're done.
It'd be amazing as a set piece. Oh my god, that sounds so good. But no, I just thought it was nice that we dispatched him. He's gone, so you're now just stuck with your main two antagonists. Are they? I don't know. I still don't know quite where they stand, or what Baylon's ideology is, or what he's aiming for. And I mean, we'll talk about Sabine later and her disastrous decisions today. But yeah, it was nice. It was there. We had the rumors, and obviously they've all now been dispatched with, he's just a big puff of green smoke, which I'm glad he's kind of out the picture now.
Yeah, I know. I remember saying last week that it's a bit kind of unclear about who the main villain is at this point. Because, I mean, obviously Thrawn's out there. We know Thrawn's going to appear. But, you know, I was saying kind of like, you know, Jedi survivor angle. We get what we're being told is the big bad, but is it actually someone that we're underestimating, like a Baylon, who I would consider this series is like maybe main villain at this stage anyway. Even though I know like Morgan is, there's a bunch of different people here, and I think that's why, despite my fear about Cal Kestis and the Inquisitor and all that, ultimately I felt quite comfortable in thinking I don't think they'll be that important, because if they were, they would have had much more focus. Like they weren't. The show wasn't saying, oh, there was no vibes for me that the show was saying, oh, like remember this 1 millisecond from this because that's going to be really important to you finding out who this is. So it wasn't a complete shot. That ended up being no one, and I was thankful, and it meant that Ahsoka could continue with her kill Bill, kill Thrawn, thing that she's got going on. And if someone could do a crossover of that would be great. But what I did love actually is I love that throughout this entire episode, Ahsoka's just been using one lightsaber, and I thought that was a really interesting choice to do that, rather than just going all double blade. And I think that definitely helped with the samurai vibes, and I think it shows her confidence in just using one as well. That a lot of people think, oh, well, she's got two, she'll always use two, but she used to use one in Clone Wars, didn't she, for quite a while?
Yeah.
She's fine to use that. So yeah, that was really awesome, and I did love that. Even though Sabine wasn't using the Force, I do love that Shin was like totally like ready, and she moved her head, and she's like, "What? That's not fair." And then again, like using actual Mandalorian stuff instead, being like, "Oh right, well I can't take her out by this, so just use that." So yeah, it was a good fight. I think it is difficult when you have the duel that's coming. I feel like the second half of the episode just goes up to an 11, and you go, "Oh, okay, this was just an appetizer."
Let's talk that second half. The Baylon Ahsoka standoff. Wow, even better than that. Let's jump ahead. Ahsoka going straight for the map. Shin-Hati, dueling with Sabine to a point, which obviously then sets up the not reveal later, but where their terrible story decisions are going to go for these individuals. You're going to look back. There's a moment today, and I looked at it and think, this must be the dumbest character moment since Star-Lord punched Thanos in the face in Infinity War. We'll get to that. The ramifications. I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I just mean in terms of in-story decision, not my thoughts on the decision. The Baylon duel with Ahsoka, I kind of thought, because we'd seen the map being projected around the Henge, right? So I think when the series dropped, I know we didn't do a trailer discussion, but I think off the trailer we saw at Celebration, we all thought, I don't know, Sam, did you do the main Lucasfilm panel? I can't remember if you saw anything Ahsoka at Celebration. I know you didn't get to the Ahsoka panel.
No, I didn't go to the panel.
Did you do the main Lucasfilm one?
Yeah, I did, because I was in Twin Suns for that, and I saw the trailers for everything, I think, in that. So
excellent.
Thank goodness.
Do you remember on that first trailer, I think we all thought they were dueling in the world between worlds, which isn't the case. Yeah. It's this new space engine. I think, aside from the 2 shots of Thrawn, we've now seen the entirety of the marketing campaign by the end of the first episode, which is pretty great. And I'm going to guess we're going to get Thrawn next week. But it's one of those where, when it was building up to it, I think heading into the series, obviously we lost Ray Stevenson and we knew who was going to be in it, and we didn't know the context of it. In the trailers, we didn't know, orange bladed saber. We didn't even think of the words Master and Apprentice. We're like, there's 2 villains with orange lightsabers. And from the opening scene of part 1, the Phantom Menace vibes, which we spoke about, through to this, I think you're kind of right. Apologies, I forgot which one of you said that they think he's going to be the big bad. I think I'm with you. I think Baylon's going to be the main villain for the series. I think Thrawn is going to come in. He's going to get into the right galaxy. And then I think that's going to not fizzle out. That's going to set up the film for a couple of years' time. I think you are right that there's something else going on with Baylon. And what I loved, even before we got to the actual duel with him and Ahsoka, the standoff where he spoke about Anakin. And it's like, few would see what he became. I'm like, oh, it's getting personal. And I love that she's like, he never mentioned you to me. And he's like, yeah, but everyone knew him. And I just kind of loved that is the kind of Anakin vibe, right? Not only is he the chosen one, but that's like the one guy in the office that everyone's heard of because they're like so. What would you say? Like, not like off the rails, but yeah, we kind of knew what Anakin was up to in the Clone Wars. You know, just committing odd war crime here and there, bit of a big deal. Joined it as like an old youngling after destroying a Trade Federation ship. All those kinds of things. I love that people that not that it's an excuse of like, oh, why haven't we seen him in Clone Wars? Why haven't we seen him in this and that? We don't need that. But there's already an added history by the fact they've built up Baylon really well. He doesn't just come across as a standard Jedi with sin. That's somebody that's lived in a post-Order 66 galaxy. And he very much wears that. He's got his armor, quite literally. He's got his strategic approach. And I love the fact he's instantly thinking of Anakin. And the kind of reason I'm sort of dwindling on this is that, you know, he said in part 2 it'd be a shame to have to kill Ahsoka because there's so few Jedi left. My theory, and again, this is wild, and I don't like doing theories because so many people lose track of what a theory is versus what they then think should happen, not will happen. I think Baylon has an intention to bring back the Jedi and change the past, aka Order 66. I think they're very, very intentionally not revealing his plans so that we can get him as a big bad. And I think today was the first tidbits of, I think the only reason he's actually ended up dueling with Ahsoka, again, I've seen this episode once, not twice compared to normal, but the main reason they're dueling is that her approach immediately is, I'm stopping this, I'm going to have to kill you all because you're going to bring back Thrawn. And he's never once said, I can't wait to see Thrawn. I think he's scheming, he's planning something else. And because he knew Anakin and he knew Ahsoka as Anakin's Padawan, and he clearly sees Anakin's attitude in Ahsoka, I think to him it's okay, I'm going to have to get rid of this person because I know what they're capable of. Whereas what we then get with Sabine, and I'm jumping to post the duel, is a very different Baylon, where he's understanding. Yes, it's, I guess, villainous that he's sort of luring them in, but there's a sort of respect there, especially when Trinity's trying to choke her. So I think you're absolutely right that he is going to be the big bad for the show. And I think we're going to probably get it in the last episode or two. And I could also feel there's going to be some further Phantom Menace parallels with a certain, you know, dying Qui-Gon Jinn. And I don't know if he's going to go in this series, but I just feel there's a lot of comparisons to Qui-Gon Jinn, and maybe in the respect of like the age, his approach. I mean, he wasn't a Jedi Master at the end of the Clone Wars, but just his stances, it feels like such a new character, but such a great one. And kind of before we get into the duel, what do you guys think about his, I guess, standoff with Ahsoka before they even go for it?
I did love it. I think you're right. He gets that attitude when she says the line of that. Oh, you never said anything about you. Feels very much when Anakin was talking to Grievous, like, oh, you'd be taller, you're shorter than I'd heard, or it just had that same sort of vibe to it. And yeah, he definitely, Baylon has some other thing in mind. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't have any sort of foresight in which way he's going to go. Whether that is something he knows about, maybe the world between worlds, he's got some inkling of that, or I just don't know where they're going to go with him. But I'm really, and I need more of him. Baylon out of the show is probably my favorite character. He just jumps off the screen. He's this bigger than life. He looked at in this episode when he was with Ahsoka, he looks massive. He's just so broad, tall. He just looks like a knight of the realm. Like you could imagine him as an Arthurian sort of knight. Everything he does on that screen. I was saying, George, before we came on, I'm devastated that unfortunately we lost Rey as we have, because I would love to see more of his story. I think there is so much to this guy that he could have brought to Star Wars and would have been incredible. He, like you just said there, George, like Qui-Gon Jinn vibes. I get vibes as if Qui-Gon Jinn had got through, not died where he did, got right through Order 66 and was still alive, that he would have been that
it's like a
survivor,
isn't
person. Like, yeah, he would have felt that same, I think that vibe around him would have felt like that, very just ethereal and bigger than everybody else, and has this air of importance around him. And I don't know what it is, but I'm completely drawn to him. Every time he's on screen, I can't take my eyes away from him. I just think he's such a well-played character. I just devastated, but I'm so glad he got to make this and be part of this show because he's incredible. I just thought the standoff with him and Ahsoka, when they started just posing against each other in different stances before they even went into battle, was just beautiful. Like they trying different stances to see which way they were going to attack or how they would. Obviously, just going through the different. I have too many good things to say about this. I loved every moment of this while they were on screen together.
Yeah, Baylon to me is, I mean, I just think he's really intriguing. And I think I'm glad that we've not been given a lot. But we can kind of maybe figure some things out based on what he's saying or how he's acting. And he feels like he's lived. Like I feel like he's observed a lot. He feels like he's a survivor. Obviously, we don't know like his point of view perspective, when Order 66 went down and everything. But clearly he has a moral code. Whether or not it's the right morals or not, we still unsure. But he does, live by one, which is more so than any villain does, apart from greed and hatred and basically anything that makes up a Sith. So I think potentially creating a new Jedi Order or something is a good shout. I think that's definitely a potential thing and isn't something that I think would be too far out, because he doesn't seem like the guy who wants to take over the galaxy. That's not... For me, I don't get that vibe at all. And I do think he has his own sense of what's right. I think he probably does see Anakin and Ahsoka, and I think Ahsoka kind of does reflect what Anakin was like in episode 3 a little bit, in terms of being a lot cooler than they were previously when they were younger, and really acting as if they've got this and that they're ready for anything. I don't know if when they were doing the different poses and stuff, if it was like trying to figure out different forms, what they were going to use or something, because this is the first time they're battling. What is their fighting style? So I do think it's interesting to just kind of get that. What are you like? How are you going to fight me? How am I going to defend you, and vice versa? So I just think the whole build up was really interesting. I think it's a great location as well to have something like that, and something that feels old, and something that has a lot of history to it. And I think then leading into the fight as well, it's using the environment around you, seeing lightsabers go through rock or using the Force on them and stuff, and then that lovely visual of the map around as well. I think it's I just think the whole thing was just kind of amazing to watch, I think.
Yeah, and even with the countdown clock, I know there's always a hook that you want something happening in the background, but it adds that sense of urgency and tenseness that when it does get into the duel itself, Baylon's not trying to kill her per se. She's trying to get to the map. He's trying to defend the map. It's not even a let's just fight to kill each other. It's a we both have a goal here. We know what your goal is, so I'm going to stop it. And it felt a bit fresh. It felt somewhat different. And I'm just going to bring this comment. Fans Disney can't write a good lightsaber duels. Filoni, hold my Grogu. It can write good duels, but yeah. Let's. I mean, I want to talk quickly about the performance of Ray Stevenson. I want to say this, and I've been thinking this as we started this video. Obviously, the Star Wars has an expanded universe, not the silly old one that's rightfully been binned off. Sorry, hashtag don't care. They have so many comics and books these days. It's become a new expanded universe, which is fine. Baylon's a character that has to have like something, right? And I first thought like, oh yeah, they could do a one-shot comic series. Yeah, that'd be cool. And I have the correct answer: Tales of the Jedi, Baylon. Find out.
1,000%.
I know we haven't finished the series, but I am sat there saying we need to know his past. What happened at Order 66? Didn't he have an apprentice, or was he a Jedi Knight? Not even a master, not an apprentice. Was he like a warrior? I kind of want to know. And this is the sort of character that lends itself to, this is someone we should go back and find out more about them. You don't have to pad that out to everyone. It won't change the experience watching the stuff. But, Filoni spoke about that Tales of the Jedi is going to continue. This character would be great to do. I know, obviously, we don't have Ray Stevenson with us anymore, and it would sort of honor his character legacy as well. Because I certainly think of all the characters that we've been introduced to over the last 10 plus years, I'm kind of with you, Dave. This is immediately one of the most intriguing new characters. And it sort of, for me, sort of goes back to that, not to criticize the context of 2012, but the mindset approach to the first Disney Star Wars stuff, where it was like, can't be the Star Wars prequels, got to be original trilogy. This is one of the first times it felt like here's a character who's lived in this galaxy for like 40, 50 years. Like, he's been through it all, and that's why he is where he is now. Even little things like the saber that's been bled but not properly done. There's so much we can find out about him. I think we're going to get a big chunk more, and I do think he will be the big bad of the series by the time we're at the end of the show.
Well, I wanted to say, actually, sorry, George, just really quickly. Like, I think because for many, again, I've not watched Rebels, but I mean, for many, it was like, oh, it helps bridge the prequels and the original trilogy together, and I think this shows another way of doing that, because obviously it's set after the originals, but there's so many prequel elements in it that I think it does, a nice fusing together. And I think can probably mention it later as well, but potentially what happens next week will help us maybe find out things that happened in the past with Baylon, potentially. Maybe that's me just hoping, but I mean, I think that
I think you're right.
We've got a good opportunity there.
No, I'm kind of with you, 100, and I think in line of that there are other storytelling, and with Star Wars Rebels, when Rebels began, I know it had its wobbly sort of first half of season 1. It was that mindset: can't be the prequels, got to go all out original trilogy, from concept designs to approach to this to that. It was only, I'd say, Dave, would you agree? Probably like when Ahsoka popped up at the end of season 1, and it's like, I'd say it went from more of a prequel bridge to let's end the Clone Wars storylines that for a show that got cancelled in a really polite way, and they did it in a charming way. And then obviously they got to then go and do Clone Wars and fill in the gaps properly. But I certainly agree that it does. It's like the latter years of the Empire. It's 5 years before season 1. It does a lot more to set up the original trilogy, I think, in a polite way. Lots of cameos to begin with. Again, new era, got to have those sort of teething problems, but then you get things like Inquisitors, and there are some very prequel-esque things in there. It's a great point to bring up, and Phil's put in the comments about I'd love to see a book on Baylon. I think we're going to get loads of stuff about him. I think the World Between Worlds stuff is all to do with him. Not all, but like I feel like he's going to know of it. And again, because in the few episodes we've spent time with him, he's talking about like back at the Jedi Temple, like, yeah, we used to hear stories about this thing. And like, here's a bit of added knowledge that we haven't really had before with Star Wars that they're able to do. And every time he speaks, I'm sort of on edge, and he isn't waffling, he isn't doing villainous monologues. Everything he says is sort of with precision and within reason. And it's almost his experience sort of being worn out for people to see. But let's talk the duel itself, which I thought was phenomenal. It felt like a round one, and that's like a complimentary way that, as I said, they're not trying to kill each other. There's a common objective. He's defending the map. She's trying to destroy the map. So it isn't yet at this rightful, I'm going to get you type thing. It's building to it. And he does ultimately, throw her off the side of the cliff. But what were your thoughts on the duel? Because again, I can't really fault the choreography. And this in turn makes me really appreciate killing off the Pointless Inquisitor even quicker, because one criticism of the prequels is there were too many lightsaber duels. Now, 8-year-old George, there's no such thing as too many lightsaber duels. I know that is there like 12 technically in Revenge of the Sith? There's a lot. Something like that. What I thought was interesting was by going for the old school Japanese samurai, one swipe kill, we're not having 2 lightsaber duels in the space of 2 minutes on screen. We're having like a dispose of this, kickstart this, and it feels like the sequel trilogy, like the original Star Wars. The lightsaber duel is taking place for story purpose rather than for action purpose. And I think that's what I think Filoni's approach has been with lightsaber duels with his time within Star Wars, that he doesn't ever do it for the sake of it, that there is purpose and reason. And I've really enjoyed the duel. It's an easy way. I can't hyperfixate on it. I loved what I saw. As you guys both said, the setting makes it stand out from itself. The orange saber versus the white saber looked great on the camera. It just felt like something new we've not had before, and yet it's the gazillionth Star Wars lightsaber duel.
I absolutely adored it. I just thought, and like as you said there, it had, yes, it was completely new to Star Wars and the way they did it, yet it still felt to me when they were clashing sabers, very original trilogy, very Darth Vader versus Ben Kenobi, and sort of the speed of it at times that very methodical, very like I know that was at that shot and there were supposed to be two old characters fighting, but it just felt to me I had this total flash of wow, that's very original trilogy. I mean, that's that original fight on the Death Star. But then there was moments and flashes of rocks being thrown around. So you get Empire with like the breaking of the stuff coming at Luke. And it felt across all eras in different ways that they had slight different parts of their fight, that these are two people who, like Sam said, have been through so much and they've lived through all this, like Order 66 and the whole of the Clone Wars and then beyond, that they bring all of that into this one little compact, not a fight, not a battle, but just trying to do this one thing of grab this orb, one attack, one defending. I thought it was one of the, if not the best lightsaber fight we've had certainly in Star Wars television.
I feel that's a really strong point. I did reference Kill Bill before, and I kind of stand by it still here because it does feel the bride versus Oren. The bride has taken out all the everyone else quite easily. We're now at a point where you have two people in a darkened setting. There's history, even though these two don't really know each other personally. There's definitely a shared history there that they've both experienced. And I think, let's just say, I mean, half of this duel is the build up and the lead up to it, and without that, it would make the duel less impactful. So when it does happen, against great, and Ahsoka's still using one lightsaber. I think something as simple as having whites and orange. I think for so many years, I think that's why people got so excited when Mace Windu's lightsaber was purple. Because it was like it's so different. All we've had is blue and green lightsabers battling red, and that's it. And I think now I feel like at one point it would have been a joke, different colored lightsabers and all that stuff. But I feel like they're becoming a little bit more prominent now. And we've seen, in different forms of media that it is possible to have varying colors of lightsabers. So even to see that in live action is just so good. And as I said before, like this, I think interacting with the environment, Ahsoka, using the rocks in the henge, to jump off. And then Baylon throwing. I think it was just really interesting. And like you said, George, it's all about the orb. It's not necessarily about killing each other. It's about trying to get it and defend it. I wasn't expecting it to burn Ahsoka's hand. Whether or not it leaves a print on there that will help in the future, I don't know. But I like where the duel goes, especially when that once the orb's kind of taken out of the equation for a little bit, that happens, and then Shin pops up, and then Ahsoka fears the worst, gets a little bit angry, and I think that's kind of what leads to her, I guess, defeat in this one. She's taken a bit off guard, and ultimately Baylon gets the upper hand. But even for me, it was great to see Ahsoka, even though she didn't lose it, but there was definitely like a bit of a switch, and she wasn't as collected as she was. And even though she smashed into that rock, it was like, oh no, this isn't good. And then she just goes off the cliff, as you do.
Yeah, for a future we'll talk about at the end. But moving on from the duel, we've got to talk the Sabine stuff. I compared it to Chris Pratt in Infinity War. Again, I stand by it's not a bad story decision, but like in universe, it's frustrating. But you understand why this person has done this thing. And obviously, they won't make jokes about like Guardians 3 did, but I love that Balon's got her. He takes that second, doesn't he? Wises her up. Clearly, goes into her mind a little bit, figures her out. I love that they set up at the start of the episode that Sabine's not going to actually be able to carry it through. That if push comes to shove, she's not going to potentially, destroy the way for them to get to Ezra, which again sets up the Sabine-Ahsoka relationship. Big information drop that all of Sabine's family were killed during the Purge on Mandalore, which was very interesting for them to talk about. Made as a side piece comment, I'm sure will come back to us at some point down the line, or if she pops up in Mandalorian, probably develop it a bit further in there. But I like that her and Ahsoka haven't had a rosy history. We're now starting to see why she maybe doesn't trust her so much. But I loved this moment of, Balon's not throwing Ahsoka off the cliff if he doesn't think that he's going to have Sabine in his pocket. The way he just, go on, do it. And she just standing there, gun on. I know it looks like a thermal detonator, but I just love, again, his performance, that he's not reacting, he's not rushing, like he's studied it up, he's wise, that he knows that she's not a problem. And I love that he's luring her in with the, if you want to get to Ezra, you come with me and you've got my word, you'll be safe. Now, it's such a villainous thing to do. Of course you'll be safe. I think there's a bit of truth in there. I do think, again, this is jumping back to my ideas and my theory that he's moving on way past the concept of Thrawn, concept of the Empire. He's got his eyes on the bigger prize. We don't know what that is yet. We can theorize about what it is, and I guess I have. But I just think he isn't some puppet of the Night Sisters, of Thrawn, of the Empire, that he is playing his own game in there. And what I'm really excited for, if this happens, I'd love him to get a scene with Thrawn. I think he probably will. But I'm very, very curious about what might happen between the two of them. But what are your thoughts on the Sabine stuff? Because I understand her not doing it. And also, the bit I love as well, Shin Hati just pops up, just starts force choking her. Again, like completely unhinged. She's still fuming that she's fought someone that doesn't have the force. And I just love that, like, she is an apprentice, a villainous apprentice, but I just love that she is just fuming that she can't kill her. But again, there's, it makes me like Baylon even more. And again, Shin Hati, she can kill me. It's fine.
Baylon is just, I mean, the way he just like uses Sabine, like uses the Ezra thing against, just total gaslighting with Sabine to try and to take her on this journey to make her make a decision. For me, it felt out of character for Sabine to do that, unless somewhere down the line that it's part of the plan for her to get to the same place that Ezra's going to be, and maybe that will come into it. But it just felt, as someone who's watched everything, like has seen all of Clone Wars, has seen all of Rebels, for me it felt against the character, which is my only thing that was kind of like, oh no, I don't. For me, she wouldn't have done that so easily. But so for, I guess hopefully it's part of the plan, and it's not just because she can't let go of Ezra. Right, when we found out that's the only family she has left, like the rest of them are gone now. Would she make that decision? I don't know. And obviously Filoni knows the characters better than I ever will. But for me, it was just like a bit like, oh no, don't do that. Don't be that. But I guess it moves her now. She's going with them. She's going to end up where Thrawn is, where Ezra is, and that will continue that story. But yeah, I love the moment. I love Shin Hati just coming in and grabbing her with the force choke at the end of it all. I love the way Baylon enticed her in by. I love that, like that again, just that statue moment where he just stood, looked in the force, and saw exactly what was in Sabine's mind and what she wanted to hear, and he used that absolutely against her, and that was wonderful. I didn't feel like Sabine in that moment for me.
That was something that I did want to hear from you guys, actually, because I don't have that knowledge of Sabine. I don't know whether this is something that is in her character or not. In terms of this specific story and what's happening here, I think it was silly, stupid, but if I was her, I feel like, right, well, this is the only option, because if she tried to destroy the orb, if she shot it, who knows if it would have destroyed straight away, number one, and then she would be killed, and then that would be it. Number two, she destroys it, she gets killed. So those are her dying anyway, but then she thinks Ahsoka's just been lost. She doesn't know that Hera's coming. Basically, we hear about all her family being dead. And obviously, I know that she's had a close-knit family vibe with the Ghost crew, and that's not there, and she feels like the one person that she's been, really wanting for years is within reach, and the only way to get to him is through this choice. So even though I don't agree with it, I understand it for sure. And I can't say that if I was in her position, would I do the same potentially? And she's got to trust this guy, and I think it does speak to Balon's character that he says something and he sticks to it, which, you know, I think speaks a lot of his character. Again, Shin I feel like we would lose a lot in this show if Shin wasn't here, because she's a vibe. I really feel her angsty, like, annoyance at everything. She's like, just get this done. Like last week when she was flying and she lost the ship, and she's like, I just feel like you see on her face, oh my god, I just want this over with. Let's just do it. It feels like she's been trained by like Baylon for a while, and suddenly now they're on this like wild like mission, and she's like, can we just get back to it, please? Can we just get this done? And now she's battling this person who doesn't have, you know, a strong connection to the Force, and she's like, can I just get her, like, please? And then the fact that, okay, we got to take her with us. Oh my god! Like, I love it. I love it. It's really funny. And then obviously the orb comes back. They get the map, and then Baylon just destroys it, which is very good thinking on his part. I'm glad he did it. I would have been annoyed if he hadn't, or I would have forgotten. I don't know, but it was good. It was good that he did it.
Yeah, no, very. I'm kind of with. I've got a controversial Rebels opinion. I don't normally talk this. I've not rewatched Rebels before Ahsoka. I was meant to, but we just didn't, and we didn't get time. And I think I rewatched it maybe like a year ago or a year or two ago. So I've not watched it long. I've never been in on the Ezra-Sabine relationship as much as others have made out. I know it's a brother-sister bond, but I never really got that from the series. I just got it was a family on a ship. That was more my mindset behind it. And the way the show has had Ezra and Sabine, I feel like they're a lot closer than the show ever had them be. Now, of course, the family stuff, as you said, Dave, that explains it a bit more, that she's lost all her family. There's nothing left. I'm like, well, she's got Hera and her kid, which kind of politely segues on. Let's talk hyperspace. Oh, look, a Rodian and an X-Wing. You're going to die in the next 2 minutes. I can almost guarantee everything. I'm so sorry, but I just had to say it. When the 5 X-Wings popped up, I did think, is that Deborah Chow in her cameo again? No, not Deborah Chow's cameo. I was like, so you're telling me we've got the Ghost, which looks great. We've got Kanan's son piloting it. Great. We've got, oh God, I forgot his name. From Mandalorian, dearie me. The X-Wing pilot.
I literally had it on in the brain before, and it's just completely gone.
It's not. No, Wolf's Filoni's character. Apologies, but
Carson Treya.
Carson
Treya. The moment he popped up, I was like, brilliant. He's going to be alive.
Carson Diva.
The Ghost is going to live. But I just want to talk about the hyperspace sequence because
pulling that old Holdo maneuver.
I just love this idea. Like, it's a giant ring. I'm like, well, yeah, I guess in theory they should go through it. You know. I just love that. I was like, is there going to be any sadistic, let's shoot them, let's this? It's like, nah, let's just get on with it, lads. The weird, almost EMP blackout that kills all the other X-Wing pilots, I really enjoyed it. I don't know why. It kind of made sense. I just couldn't get over the image. You know, in Force Awakens, was he Elo Asti? He was all over the toys. He was all over the merchandise. He was that alien resistance pilot, and he died straight away because, yeah, you're an alien and you're in an X-Wing. It's almost like an unofficial racist Star Wars trend. And it was the same thing. It's like, is that a Rodian in an X-Wing? Yep, he's going to go. And he did go dramatically. Sorry if that does sound terrible, but I loved, again, we're getting on with it. We're not dragging out this big moment of them zipping into hyperspace to get Thrawn. It's like, this is part of the plan. They're on the ship. We've got Sabine, as we kind of said earlier. Sabine's now with these lot. All the Thrawn side of things, I think, is going to be Sabine's point of view now. And then we're going to have World Between Worlds for Ahsoka, which we'll get into shortly. But do you guys have anything to say on the hyperspace set piece? Or do we just want to talk about the ending?
I mean, I thought it was excellently well done. I love the old Holdo maneuver that you're going to fly straight into the ships in front of them without any care of them causing any damage. They were going to whip through them. I like the look of it, how you could see it almost breaking space in the background. Like, you don't often see. They normally just zip out and they're gone, but you can see this effect like still ongoing way out into space. Obviously, how powerful this hyperdrive was. I loved seeing the Ghost in space, surrounded by X-wings, and the rest of the Rebel fleet. Seeing those ships in space, just I don't know if it's all CG, if they've got any models still of those ships, but it looked incredible. I love seeing the Ghost do little flybys. It was really nice to see her. And I mean, well, because obviously we're going to go on to the ending, but I did love Jason in the co-pilot seat saying I had a bad feeling, but not in a.
Yeah.
I had a bad feeling about this. He's feeling Jedi feelings of what's going on, because we all know who his father is. So it's I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed seeing Hera and them in space in the Ghost.
Yeah, there's something about seeing home run. Oh my god! Like,
oh, once we saw home run, it was lovely. They got all around that diamond, and
yeah, I know. Oh my god! Once we saw home one, like I love seeing it. I love seeing a fleet. I think something that has been an issue is seeing the New Republic in kind of its finest, or what all the good aspects. It's all, oh, we're here. Oh, this is going fine, but we're going to focus on either the shady stuff or things that are going wrong. Like, we don't really see them in a triumphant point of view, it feels. So it's nice to see that anyway. And I thought it was so cute to see Jason pull the hyperspace. Like it feels like one of those things where it's like a parent in a car, but like, okay, well, you can do this. Okay, like, but also I got like really strong like Rogue Squadron vibes by, you know, ship going out of the hangar, you know, there's like cutscene to the ship you're piloting surrounded by, you know, CPU X-wings that are going to be by you. I got that vibe completely, and I just had the music in my head that would play whilst that was happening. Like, so that was really good for me. And yeah, the hyperspace stuff. What I loved in that was that interior where you see. I do love the interior of that hyperspace ring, and the kind of those white lights that are going up, and the whole build up. You kind of feel the power that's being built up in that. And it doesn't surprise me that something that's got 7 hyperdrive generators will like leave an effect, and that there's some form of like EMP residual effect to something that a ship with a normal hyperdrive wouldn't have. So I like that it had those effects, and that it did cause the X-wings like crash into each other. But of course, it's really funny to be like, well, it's a really good job that X-wing didn't crash into the Ghost. Otherwise, that's a really bad that's a really bad sign. That. But yeah, I love that, and it'll be interesting. It's interesting to see the technology kind of evolve, and I feel like it's, you know, things that help kind of make you think, oh, well, it doesn't. It couldn't understand how Starkiller Base eventually becomes a thing. You know, when the remnants of the Empire are creating things like this, which is so out of pocket, is so random, it kind of makes a little bit more sense to that.
I mean, Sam, you're a Doctor Who fan.
Yes,
did you get like Time Lord vibes from like that room? Like, it's like a weird throne room, but on a ship, and the way the way the generators were like going light black, it's like it looks like a proper like set in a studio, and like not a TARDIS, but it felt very new to Star Wars, which we haven't had too much of, in the sense of like.
Yeah, I get kind of like a Gallifreyan vibe. Like, it could be, this is a random Time Lord's aesthetic.
Like if Timothy Dalton popped up, you'd be like,
oh, wow.
Kind of makes sense this week.
Well, if Timothy Dalton
would be great in Star Wars.
He really, his theatrical, like, come on.
He'd be a great Star Wars politician in Andor. That's what I've always thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Andor, there's been a bit of confirmation in the last 10 minutes. There's a Twitter account called the Disc Father, and it's a home media account, and they've just got a scoop that the Andor 4K is also now confirmed for 2024. I'm going to guess that's going to drop with season 2, so don't get your hopes up. It's probably going to be 2025 now. That's my personal gut feeling. Yeah. But yes, I'm sorry to divert and talk about Andor.
No, great. Talk about Andor. We love Andor.
Let's talk the ending.
Yes.
There we go. The rocks, the cliff. I think this is 4 minute live. Me and David saying that it was like an amazing transition onto Ahsoka's face. I was like, oh look, she's just chilling on top of a rock. It's like the Little Mermaid or something like that. Like she's all right. She's gonna be all right. I was like, that's a very sparkly, bluey water there. That's cool. That's a new Star Wars thing. And then you hear a certain voice, a certain Hayden Christensen, an actor rumored for this series so heavily it was all but confirmed. I think everyone knew he was going to be in it. No one would have probably thought he'd be in it today. And no one probably thought he'd be in it standing in the world between worlds with Ahsoka. There's cliffhangers and there are cliffhangers. It's a 2-in-1. We've got the world between worlds, which we kind of assumed was going to come into the series at some point. But we also didn't anticipate it being Hayden Christensen. I'm going to be right back because I hyperventilate, but I'm going to leave it for you two to begin the Hayden.
The world between worlds for me has been a thing since Rebels was on and it first came out, and George and Phil hated it when it came out, and they're probably going to say now that they loved it, and it's always been a thing they've loved, but it wasn't. They didn't. They all mocked me for how much I loved the world between worlds. To see it finally live action, when they panned that across, like George said, in that lovely pan from the fade from the sea rocks, the sea, and then suddenly she was lying down and the camera tilted up with her so you could actually see the pathway, and you just instantly were like, oh, we're in the world between worlds. And to see it in live action, the way they've done it, like it looked stunning. And to see her stand up, and then you do hear the hello snips. If you listen very carefully, it's very story. It's very I can't
Quiet?
think of the word I'm thinking about. It's just it's very quiet, and you can't really. You have to kind of listen out for it. It's very muffled almost. And then that line of "I didn't expect to see you this soon," and then that moment when she turns around and there he is standing there in not Force Ghost Anakin.
Yeah.
This is episode 3 looking Anakin, not in Jedi robes that we would see him in Return of the Jedi. So we're already past that point. So technically in the timeline, if this was Force Ghost Anakin, he'd be in Jedi robes as we saw him at the end of Return of the Jedi. This is episode 3 Anakin. Now, I've seen some rumors online. I've not been able to go back and watch it, but apparently he has Vader's saber on his hip, on his belt. It's Vader's, not Anakin's lightsaber. And it's just such a brief moment. Lovely to see him. All the way through, in the background of the scene, they are playing Vader's theme very lightly in piano. And then the final shot as we close out the episode, it builds those last few notes. It's still Vader's theme. I don't know what they're building to, and it was wonderful to see. I don't know what they're going to do, where we're going to go next week with this, but I love being back in the world between worlds. I love it's going to be a thing. They're going to have to put a bit more explanation on next week as to what the world between worlds is. People who are coming into this who haven't seen that episode of Rebels, this is very, very different for Star Wars. This is timey-wimey stuff that people
Doctor
are
Who.
going to need. Yeah, they're going to need to have some explanation of this version of Anakin that we're seeing, why he's in the world between worlds, at what point is this in Anakin's timeline for him to be there? They've obviously de-aged him for a reason, that they want him to look like he did in episode 3. So I'm so intrigued. I'm so excited to see where we are in his time frame. She's already fought Vader, and when she first got pulled in the world between worlds, it blew my little noodle to see this today. I'm so excited, but I've got so many questions.
It's an interesting concept, and I will firstly go, transition. I loved it. I thought it was one of those things that made me go, because I was just like, excellent. I loved it. World Between Worlds. So that may be like one of 2 episodes of Rebels that I actually have seen, just because I knew what had happened to Ahsoka with the Vader duel and wasn't. And then when I knew, she was returning this episode, or I don't know how long after the episode aired, I saw it, but I caught it eventually. Because for me, Star Wars is not something where it's like there's not a big kind of obviously the Force is kind of for me the main mystical thing about it, whereas the World Between Worlds feels so much more sci-fi than kind of this, where obviously Star Wars is sci-fi, but it feels like it has its rules, it has its things. That's what it is. So to have a place like this felt very weird to me, and I was not sure if I liked it or not at the time. Interesting concept, 1,000%. Whether or not if I felt it fit within the world, I wasn't sure. But I think with all the stuff that we've kind of like heard from the Jedi, the Sith, all of these old ancient things that have been in this galaxy, and now the whole universe of other galaxies, I feel like there are things out there, and the more Star Wars is shown and the more we get, the more aspects of that we can see. So to get this place, the World Between Worlds, is just again very intriguing, and I guess I'm a little bit uncertain of the fact that it was in Rebels, and for Ahsoka to be in this place twice in maybe a short period of time is quite okay, sure. But it does have a good parallel with her going into the World Between Worlds because of her fight with Vader, and now being back and it's Anakin. To have Anakin in there, of course, I've 100% was like, he's going to be in it. I don't care. He's going to be in this show. But to have him in that look, a lot of people I've seen have complained about, because people are really excited to see him, and everyone's like, oh, he was in Kenobi last year, and I was like, well, that is different. The way he was portrayed, the way he was that's completely different to what this is. And so I think some people just see, oh, it's Hayden, it is what it is. But how Anakin is going to be is the question, and like you said, Dave, I think he does have Vader's lightsaber, and the music. There's so many questions, and it's like, did Anakin go there? Is this just some apparition that's nothing like a Force ghost and is just its own thing? Is this an amalgamate? For me, I'm thinking an amalgamation of Vader and Anakin, where Ahsoka's still so torn because of all her relationship with Anakin, her last battle where there was that glimpse of Anakin, but it was Vader. She's really maybe not put it completely to bed, and this might be the opportunity to do so. This is the thing that's going to get her, to the next level. So yeah, there's so many questions, so many theories that I'm sure we'll think about.
It's really interesting that when Rebels came out, I think David said, I didn't like it. I thought it was a massive cop-out at the time for the story that Ezra was doing, the Emperor stuff. What sort of warms me to it over the years is the logic of this mystical, place within an existence that had been crumbled down and destroyed because Rebels had finished. And I think what I've read online, I need to double-check it, is when they build the World Between Worlds, they rebuild it on Thrawn's ship. That's where a lot of the Baylon theories are going at the moment. I can't remember the name of Thrawn's ship. It's like the Chimera, because it's got the logo on the underneath. That in theory it would be on there still, which is where people bring the Balon side into it. But to get Anakin in the year 2023, Hayden Christensen returning once more, I'm telling you right now, I've said the story on Kenobi last year. I'll say it again. 8-year-old George went into his hairdressers with hair this same length and said, I want this person's haircut, and had my episode 3 figure. And my hairdresser had to explain to me that I've not got long hair and it can happen. So that's how I feel about that. And I've once again, I looked into the lightsaber theory, Dave, whilst I was refreshing. Some people believe it's still his episode 3 lightsaber, but some people think because he's in the World Between Worlds, the natural reflections basically have replaced the chrome of darkness. So, but it's great that people are theorizing what lightsaber is it, because again, to see him in episode 3 gear hits differently, to me at least. It is, Sam, I know we're similar ages. I know when we spoke about the prequel memes, prequel hype, prequel era, episode 3 always felt like the pinnacle of growing up. Like, it was the final Star Wars film. It was the third one. You went to Toys R Us, and it was orange flames everywhere on the entrances.
Fire everywhere.
Yeah, an unbelievable time to be a Star Wars fan. Dave, I know you're a bit older, but you've probably got fonder
I'm
memories.
just saying just a bit.
But,
It's hard. It's hard.
but it's interesting that for you as well, by the time the third one came out, I think when we spoke about, you'd liked them a bit more than like the late 90s. Like the prequel trilogy had been growing on you a bit more. But it's just one of them that trying to tell 8-year-old George Hayden Christensen is going to come back one day as himself as an actor, like in these series, not just voice acting. I think it's amazing, and I'm actually going to give credit to Matt Lanter that I still don't think would be where we are without Clone Wars, without him, without Filoni. And I'd imagine the person who speaks about this a lot as well, Hayden Christensen, is probably equally as sort of happy about it. You go back to that celebration clip in Orlando where he's genuinely emotional being on that stage because that is his first appearance since 05 at a Star Wars event of any kind. But it's part of me is worried because this is a cliffhanger. I'm trying not to get the brain going because it's so easy, and people are, and I will be, and I have been. My theories are on Baylon at the moment, which is great. It's distracting me from Anakin. The World Between Worlds is a very, very tricky storytelling device. It was very divisive at the time. I think it's probably grown a lot of people because we've had time. But what I'm kind of politely saying for any Star Wars fans watching or fans of this, that the general audience not only don't have a clue what this is, they have never, ever, ever, ever been under the illusion of a time travel concept within Star Wars. I know it's not time travel.
It's
Someone's
not time travel,
say, I know,
Dave
but
Filoni will
you know
come
what
round your house and tell you it.
And it's like Indiana Jones, right? When Spielberg's like, George Lucas told me it's not aliens in the Crystal Skull. They're interdimensional beings that look like aliens. That's like saying the World Between Worlds isn't time travel. And again, I think as time's gone by, they did a very good job of it being... The purpose of that was being a story mechanism to keep Ahsoka alive. Let's not forget that. Because it was the ambiguous fate. I'm just very intrigued by what episode 3 Anakin is this. I have concerns, but I'm not going to sit here and scream and rage and shout and be like, I kind of this and this and this and this happen. All I would say is that I wouldn't want a conscious Anakin Skywalker to know his future fates and then go back into episode 3 being like, right, guys, I know what I've got to do to be the chosen one. The way I view
World Between Worlds
things...
opens up at that youngling's room. That's where the actual portal is. So it just comes straight back out. And this is it, like, there's too many, and just like,
I didn't get Grogu. Oh, what's this? Oh, there's a random window here. I didn't see that before.
It's tricky storytelling, but I think this is where next week's going to come in, right? The next week's on at cinemas. Anakin has now been introduced, so the fanfare of seeing Anakin next week, it's not going to be like it is today. People have had a week to hype. They've got a week to market this. I'd imagine a lot of people will check out now that Anakin's in it, that Hayden's in it. There'll be intrigue. He's on front and center in the poster. Should have dropped that poster today. But I'm excited because we're getting Hayden back. I have read theories, not leaks. I read speculation. The one I read, and this is purely speculation. I read a week ago that, quote unquote, there will be an altered ending of episode 3 in Ahsoka at some point. By ending of episode 3, I mean Revenge of the Sith. I did sarcastically reply with the PS2 game of the alternate ending where Anakin kills the Emperor and takes over. But I am very intrigued but nervous for how they handle it, only because it is such a tricky storytelling device. But what I will say in its favor, and I'm not saying temper expectations, that's unfair. I'm saying that I trust Dave Filoni to have brought this in and not alter the implications of the films. What I'm also hoping, and I have to bring this up because of a moron outlet who are always doing big events. I hate them, comicbook.com. Their lead journalist / critic who knows nothing about anything aside from Marvel did a tweet saying he doesn't want multiverses in Star Wars and variants.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. That. And I am just sat there saying, for the life of me, I don't think it's a variant of Anakin. but not to call people thick on the internet. But that is a general audience person who now is thinking of multiverses, or sorry, a different galaxy. And that's not how galaxies work. That's real science. Galaxies exist. But all I'll be really honest to say is I just don't want this to be like some Back to the Future gimmick for Anakin. Like, I hope there's a purpose to this. And I really hope that purpose is part of Baylon's plan that's not going to work because, again, I've sort of grown a bit with the World Between World. I'm just very, very, very nervous that, again, my logic has always been the films are canon. And this isn't a dig at the sequels. This isn't a dig at the original trilogy. It's like a timeless debate. Who is the chosen one? The answer is A, Anakin Skywalker, not Luke, not Rey. No matter, I mean, the Luke one always cracked me up that people thought Luke Skywalker was the chosen one. I always laughed at that because it didn't exist as a chosen one until 1999 anyway. But, you know, sorry that I'm waffling, but you guys with me? I'm not trying to be a downer because I'm very excited. And as I said, you know, I'm resisting going on a website and buying a lightsaber that says Anakin Skywalker. He is my hero. He is the vibe. I'll never have long hair to do that cosplay. I actually have robes that I'm not going to wear that do fit me again now. Part of me was about to say, do I dare wear them? No, I'm not going to wear them on a stream. I would melt.
Please, at
That's
some
the finale
point,
right there.
for the finale, please. Like,
if he's still in it in the finale, I'd love to ask you both. If Anakin just stuck around as a supporting character for 4 episodes, would you be like fuming? But I'll say this: no one's talking about our good blue friend Grand Admiral now. They're all talking about Anakin. And I'm telling you right now, Thrawn is coming back next Wednesday. Are we going to get him?
I don't think this will be Anakin in this for many episodes. I think, if anything, he's in for next episode and then back out of the story is what I think. The World Between Worlds is complicated. It's not like it's been set out by Dave Filoni. That's not time travel.
We've got a great comment by Charlie. The World Between Worlds is a physical conduit place for the Force. It's an extension of what Qui-Gon says. Once you become a ghost, you can see the past, the future, but it's always in flux. Very well said. Mm-hmm. Charlie, if you can, is that your knowledge or is that Filoni talk? Because if it's not Filoni talk, then you need to get yourself to Lucasfilm. And then it's just Anakin as a Force ghost, but he's clearer to us. Ooh, I like that. Okay. I think we're going to get some Clone Wars flashbacks.
It would be lovely to get that. And you know what? I always thought if we did get that and we got some Clone Wars flashback, that it might be the one time and chance they get to give Ashley Eckstein a chance of putting on the makeup and being a younger voiced Ahsoka. If she was ever going to get a chance to play the role, if we had a Clone Wars flashback, I thought it might be nice if they did that for her. As far as World Between Worlds goes, and I don't think we'll see Anakin for long. I think he will be in episode 5, but I don't see him going much further than that. It's set. Dave Filoni said when Ezra went in there, Ezra could see points in his timeline and he could hear all these other voices, but they had no meaning to him. He didn't know what the voices were. He recognized some of them, but obviously some of the voices were Rey and things. So it was like the wind. It was just all this voices of time and throughout Star Wars. I just don't know if this is going to be Anakin's timeline. Until we know why Anakin is there and at which moment he's gone into there, if this is after he's been given the title of Vader, is it before that, as he discovered this through some other means? We really need to know if this is Anakin after Jedi. There's so much. I can't see it being after Jedi because I'm completely flummoxed as how they're going to do it, but I trust Filoni with it. That's the one thing I'll come back to. I do trust that Filoni would not bring in the World Between Worlds if he didn't have a really good reason for it to be there. For it to be Ahsoka, who's now back in that world after she's already seen what she has through Ezra and knowing what she knows of her battle for Vader. Oh my god, I'm so interested. It's my mind is
intriguing, isn't it? That's my mind.
As it's going through now, I can't even see how you explain it, but I have complete faith that by the end of next week's episode, we'll be able to say that's exactly how it should have worked, and that, of course, it's that. And I'm so excited.
Yeah, I try and be as well to just think about the logic as much as possible and just
No,
base it.
throw logic
No,
out,
no, no,
Sam.
no.
Throw it out.
No, I know, and just base it on what I've seen before, and all I've got is that Rebels episode where it's, Ezra went in there through an entrance and pulled Ahsoka out. So in my mind, I'm like, I think that's why the confusion is what is Anakin in this? Charlie could be right. Force Ghost may look visually different in this space because it's not.
I like that as well.
It's not our
Yeah.
world, and I think logically that works, and it would put to rest any kind of weird continuity things. At the same time, it could be something completely different. I do think it could potentially just be an apparition of Ahsoka's mind. It could be, if we're looking into timelines. And I think my main thing about the World Between Worlds is that it could open up so many things that to use it, you need to use it correctly. And I do think the best way to use it is as a window. Ezra was taught a really important lesson when he was at Kanan's, demise. Sometimes you've got to let go. And I think perhaps Ahsoka seeing elements of her shared past with Anakin, but then potentially seeing some points of view from Anakin or whatever that she didn't know, whether that allows us to see people like Obi-Wan or Padme or Palpatine. I mean, that's when I get really excited, because who knows who else from that era could have a cameo or something. But in any case, I think it allows us. I think the main thing is, what does it do for Ahsoka? Because there's a reason for bringing her here. How did she get into it? Was it this weird apparition of Anakin, or was it something else? I'm trying not to get any further than that, because I think that's when the possibilities do become endless, and I'm really trying to think of what it's going to do for this. And she can't be in there for very long, so we do have to kind of figure out what happens then after that for her, because she's got to get out of there. She's got to get to Thrawn, but is there a way for her to get to Thrawn through here? And then I don't know what happens with Hera and Huang, and I don't know what happens with them. But yeah, it's a lot. But to answer your question, George, I don't care. I will have Anakin in every episode. I thought I was going crazy by liking this person, and no one else did. But this is the Renaissance, not the Beyonce Renaissance, even though that's great too. But the Renaissance of Hayden as Anakin, which obviously, I mean, again, George, I feel like we've waited the best part of 20 years to see.
I'll go one further. If Natalie Portman's willing to go back to Marvel, she will be coming back to Star Wars one
George,
day. I
don't think you understand. If Natalie Portman, Natalie Portman is if she comes back as Padme is like my favorite character. If she came back, I would be done. And because I know Ahsoka and Padme did have a good relationship, so yeah.
We got some really good comments. We got Charlie and Phil. Let me just try and go through them. I forgot which ones I've already brought up. Phil thinks Force Ghosts, and in Clone Wars, he was in his episode 3 type before he rushed off to the Chancellor. Good shout. It's based on Qui-Gon saying in the Clone Wars, the connection between the Mortis gods, World Between Worlds, and the Force. There's a specific reason for Anakin and Ahsoka to be there. Oh, Dave, you're getting into your beloved Mortis trilogy as well.
If Mortis comes into this, honestly, I might just explode.
Well, they were on the door. They're on the door, aren't they?
Yeah.
In theory. They have a greater role to play, which is like Anakin, Ahsoka, Ezra have all been individually tasked with these extra missions. To me, Anakin's the chosen one, and Ahsoka was saved on Mortis. It's so exciting and intriguing, and I think this is what I kind of like. That it's like sensible speculation. I feel like there's another podcast that's Force Center used to say like a really better way of saying that, but not like keep your expectations in check, because that's like a horrible way to tell people like don't be excited. But I'm not anticipating Anakin like just jumping into a room like taking like 30, 40 droids. But if there are windows and we're going to see passages of time, we're going to see things from the past. I'm not expecting him to like go past a window. There's a room of younglings, and he's like the next one, please. But I do think.
Well, sorry.
For as much as I trust Filoni, and this sort of complements his trust, if anyone's going to chuck in a not cheap, like a cheeky cameo or something, I think Filoni's the guy they would do it for. And he's going to be the one that goes back to that prequel era. Because I'm not saying I was disappointed by Kenobi. I'm not at all. And I remember when Anakin popped up in his sort of haunting mode to Kenobi, a lot of people were like, oh, that's the only time we got to see Hayden as Hayden. And then my logic is, well, if he's going to be in Ahsoka, maybe that's the show where we're going to get that a bit more, which I think we might. And then Charlie's also, I think it's more likely to see flashbacks of young Anakin and Ahsoka. I wouldn't be mad if an aged up Ewan. Ewan has been on my list. I think if anyone's going to have done it, I think Ewan would do a cameo with Anakin, with Hayden for next week.
He's vying for season 2 of Kenobi still. So, I mean, he's very much, I'm here for you. It feels so. I could see it.
And then another
this is the time for the Clone Wars armor, basically.
My head canon is that Anakin redeemed himself by reaching out to his after death like they live on the Force, which is why we hear people like Mace in the Rise of Skywalker.
Ooh.
I would pay good money for the scene where Anakin visits in the Force Mace Windu.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
he just goes up to this building. There's like a one-armed. There's just this one-armed bloke, and it's Samuel L. Jackson still, obviously, and he just turns around. I'm not going to say it, but we know what he'd say. That would be a great conversation. Again, it's more of a sketch, I guess, for like Robot Chicken. But
well, no, there is a sketch where
amazing David
goes up to everyone. He goes up to everyone, all the Jedi, just one by one. Mace Windu, I'm so sorry, Yoda. I'm so sorry, Qui-Gon. Oh, dude, it's the Key and Peele.
It's the Key and Peele sketch shaking all their hands, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly.
He's gonna find like Plo Koon, and they're gonna go for the hug, and it's gonna like the Jedi Council just straight. Ki-Adi-Mundi right at the end. Ki-Adi-Mundi, if you haven't read it, the greatest theory is that Ki-Adi-Mundi is the reason for the downfall of the Jedi. And you can actually read everything into Ki-Adi-Mundi being at fault. So he's got this giant head, this big brain, and it counted for nothing. But yeah, the world between worlds.
Attack on the
Wookiees. See, exactly. If he hadn't have said that, Obi-Wan would have been with Anakin. They'd have been fine.
Yoda wouldn't have been gone, you know. Was Yoda already? No, Yoda wasn't gone by that point.
Yeah. Why couldn't Ki-Adi-Mundi have fought Grievous?
He was on Magneto. He was on Magneto.
Yeah, but he did so well for the first few seconds against the clone troopers. But Anakin's point of view, look, dude, I'm sorry. From Mace's point of view, he's just been thrown out a window. Yeah. God, those last few seconds must have been painful. Like 1 minute your arm's been chopped. Well, 1 second your arm's chopped off. Then the next you're like getting electrocuted, and then you're just getting tossed out of a giant window about 100 stories high. Don't know what point he would have died first, but yeah, he's not alive, folks. Not that terrible Star Wars theory.
No, I don't want him to come back. I love Samuel L. Jackson, and I would happily see him as a Force ghost throughout the entire thing. But no, like if Palpatine couldn't kill him then you know,
it's going to be a fun week, I think. And like I said, we know next week's going to be big, not just because of the ending of today, because they have gone all out for the cinema release. They didn't say 2 weeks ago. Episode 5 is coming to cinemas soon. It has been, today's episode has dropped. They've done the stupid poster on the day one. A lot of people had it spoiled for them, which is really naive of Lucasfilm. And obviously they've now done this poster to advertise. It's coming to cinemas next week. Brackets, one in the country in England. Good luck, it's sold out. And it's London only at 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. Charles, but there's a passage of the Shadows of the Sith which just Palpatine's interfering with the Force and stops Anakin from helping out, which explains the balance affected by the sequel trilogy. There's a lot to read into it. And Charlie's also then put a good follow-up. Sorry, word vomiting. That's what happens when you can't podcast during the period. Listen, I'm going to say this. You know, we haven't spoken about the strikes yet today. We do it every week. I mentioned there's a lot of great Star Wars podcasts not doing anything at the moment with the strikes, and I've got mad respect to them. Charlie is operating on one of those podcasts. There are many great ones also not taking part. Imperial Senate podcast is where Charlie's from. You've got Force Center. Alden's not been doing stuff as well, who's been on our channel. There's a lot of amazing people that we've known that we've met at celebrations, Senate events. And I've got mad respect to anybody who isn't doing stuff at the moment. And I think it's kind of, I'm fully with it. You can't fault anything. There needs to be change in Hollywood. We're seeing more and more reports this week about residuals and other stuff, and we're hoping that it can get sorted. It shouldn't be hard to sort, but unfortunately it is, because there's just a lot of idiots in high-up places at these studios. You know, for fun news, Warner Brothers are about to announce a $500 million loss for this year. It's like, well done. You didn't release any films. You made a $500 million loss because you didn't want to pay someone $20 million. Well,
yeah,
not someone.
$50 million.
Everyone.
Stop that for Warner Brothers, yeah. Writers deserve to get paid for the work they did. Like this series we're watching right now, without the writers behind that, the actors that are taking part of it, we get none of this. We don't get to comment on
Yeah.
this. So yeah, absolute massive respect to everybody who is on part of this strike.
And as well, like the perspective as well for some of the actors and writers, they haven't just done this show and been like, yes, brilliant, don't have to talk about Star Wars. Rosario Dawson missed out on 2 press tours, one for Haunted Mansion, one for this.
Yeah,
This is the lead series that she filmed for a long time. It's been building to for years. This is Filoni's showrunner series. These are all people that would have been in the marketing. Hayden obviously wouldn't have said anything till now, but a whole group of people have missed out on promoting what is arguably the biggest show of their careers. And we kind of said in episode 1, technically the only marketing and interviews that have ever been done for Ahsoka season 1 is actually now the Celebration press conference, which is also tragically sort of haunting because obviously we've lost one of the lead actors from the series in that time, and the cast can't even talk about him in this with them because that breaches it. So, again, people like do read up on the strikes, and I've seen people pot-shotting that, all this over this, and there's nothing coming out. Well, read into why nothing's going to be coming out. It's not hard. And as I said, I've got mad respect to any other Star Wars outlets and that people that are not doing it at the moment, which I really do appreciate. But that being said, that's like a weird way to end today's episode. It's been a pretty great discussion. We've gone over an hour and a half. And again, World Between Worlds. Next week is going to be an absolute riot. We normally have 3 people on each episode. I haven't made rules. Well, it's mainly 3, but there's probably going to be more than 3 people next week because next week's going to be the big one. And I guess what I'll say, if there's an earlier time to go live, if there's the same time to go live, we'll put it on social media. So linktree.com/cinemasavvy. Twitter's the main place to really follow us. X, if people want to call it that now. Just named after CM Punk in memoriam for the wrestling career. But it's one of them where, next week's going to be, I think, the big one. I think every episode is going to be a big one if I'm being honest moving forward. But next week's going to be special. I think it's going to be different. It's going to stand out, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So as always, thank you everyone that's been watching, that's been commenting. If you're not watching live, you can still leave a comment. We'll reply to those. Let us know your World Between Worlds. What would you want to see in a World Between Worlds? What scenario would you like to see? Because it's very curious. We're all curious. We're nervous, but we're excited. Filoni's at the wheel. And it's going to be one of them. So get involved, hit the subscribe button. I mentioned Peter Ramsey directing today's episode, by the way. Storyboard artist on 7 back in 1995 to plug our latest David Fincher review. What a timing that is, that those dropped 2 days apart from each other. So we are doing a weekly David Fincher retrospective leading up to the release of The Killer on the 13th. There are films coming out at the cinema. Some films I'm very behind, so we've not had solo reviews out. We're going to have more reviews coming soon, so anything we'll be putting on our socials. But next Wednesday, we will be live with Ahsoka Part 5. Also, the title Fallen Jedi. I know it's meant to be Baylon, but we're all thinking Anakin as well, aren't we? But yeah, listen, both of you, thank you so much for jumping on. This is for everyone that's been commenting along with us. It'll be great to get you both on next week. But until the meantime, we'll see you all then. So take care and join us later.
See you later.